In 1936, a French factory worker named Marcel stepped onto a train bound for the seaside. He carried a suitcase, his wife's hand, and something that was about to become a fundamental right for millions: legally mandated paid vacation time. Marcel was among the first to benefit from France's groundbreaking new law. Before that summer, if you weren't wealthy, you rarely took extended leisure trips. You might get unpaid time off for illness or family emergencies, but the idea of weeks away from work while still receiving your wages? Unthinkable. The concept of paid time off was so radical that when France's new government proposed it, employers predicted economic collapse. They were wrong. What happened instead changed everything about how we think about work, leisure, and what it means to be human. Hi guys, I'm Monty and I'm a linguist and a history enthusiast. I create videos that give you a new perspective on modern concepts. If you learned something from this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel to help me grow and create more of this kind of content. And let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me talk about in my next video. We take vacations so for granted that it's almost impossible to imagine a world without them. But that world existed just 90 years ago. For most of human history, the idea that ordinary workers deserved weeks of paid leisure would have seemed as absurd as suggesting they deserved crowns and castles. Work was survival, time off was starvation. The transformation from that reality to our current one happened through a combination of gradual social movements and specific legislative breakthroughs, with governments fighting bitter battles against employers who saw paid leave as theft. The story of how vacations came to exist reveals something profound about power, about who gets to rest, and about how quickly the impossible can become inevitable. It's also a story that's far from over. Even today, the United States remains the only developed nation with no legal guarantee of paid vacation time. Understanding how we got here requires going back to that revolutionary summer in France, when the very concept of leisure as a right was born. Before 1936, the closest thing to a vacation for working people was unemployment. If you were lucky enough to have a job, you kept it by showing up every day the factory opened. The Industrial Revolution had created a new kind of human, the wage worker, whose time belonged entirely to someone else. Unlike farmers who worked seasonally or craftsmen who controlled their schedules, factory workers lived by the clock and the whistle. The wealthy, of course, had always taken holidays. By the 1800s, European aristocrats were perfecting the art of leisure travel, creating the Grand Tour tradition and establishing resort towns across the continent. But this wasn't called vacation. That word comes from the Latin vacare, meaning to be empty or to be free. For the rich, it was simply life. They owned enough to live without working. For everyone else, being empty of work meant being empty of income. Early advocates for worker leisure began appearing in various countries during the early 1900s. Some progressive employers experimented with brief unpaid holidays. Labor movements across Europe and America started demanding better working conditions, including time for rest. These efforts laid crucial groundwork, though they faced fierce resistance from business interests who saw any time away from work as lost productivity. The real breakthrough came during the Great Depression, when traditional economic thinking was already in ruins. France's Popular Front government, elected in 1936 amid massive strikes and social upheaval, faced a simple choice: give workers more or face revolution. On June 20th, 1936, they passed one of the world's most comprehensive paid vacation laws of its time, guaranteeing 2 weeks of paid leave for every worker in France. The law's immediate impact was visible from space. Well, it would have been if satellites existed then. That August, French railways carried 600,000 more passengers than the previous year. Coastal towns that had catered only to the wealthy suddenly found themselves hosting factory workers and shop clerks. The French coined a new phrase, les congés payés, paid leave. But more than terminology had changed. The entire relationship between work and life had been rewritten. What happened next reveals how revolutionary this concept truly was. Employers didn't just resist paid vacation laws, they couldn't comprehend them. The idea that you would pay someone to not work violated every principle of industrial capitalism. It was like paying farmers to not grow crops or paying soldiers to not fight. But the French experiment produced unexpected results that challenged these assumptions. Workers returned from their first paid vacations more productive, not less. Absenteeism dropped, workplace accidents declined, the economy, rather than collapsing, grew stronger. Other European nations watched nervously, then began implementing their own versions. Britain had actually passed the Holidays with Pay Act in 1938, which encouraged rather than mandated paid vacation. While modest in scope, its psychological impact was enormous. A Coventry factory worker, so thrilled by his first paid holiday that he wrote to the local newspaper, signed his letter simply "sunburned." His joy wasn't just about the vacation itself, but about what it represented. For the first time in his life, he could afford leisure without apologizing to creditors afterward. The spread of paid vacation policies revealed something crucial about how social change happens. It wasn't gradual cultural evolution, it was rapid legal revolution. Once one country proved that paid leave was economically viable, others had to follow or risk losing competitive advantage. Workers who had experienced paid vacations couldn't imagine returning to a system without them. The impossible had become inevitable in less than a decade. But the United States remained the holdout. American employers watched European productivity gains with interest, but they attributed them to other factors. They argued that American workers were different, more industrious, less in need of rest. This wasn't entirely wrong. American workers were indeed working longer hours than their European counterparts. They just weren't necessarily more productive because of it. The closest America came to European-style vacation laws was during World War II, when labor shortages gave workers unprecedented bargaining power. Some companies began offering paid vacation as a recruitment tool, but these were voluntary corporate policies, not legal rights. When the war ended and labor markets normalized, many companies quietly reduced or eliminated these benefits. The pattern was telling. American businesses would offer paid vacation when forced to by market conditions, then withdraw it when they could. This revealed that the real barrier wasn't economic, it was philosophical. European countries had accepted the principle that workers deserved leisure as a right. America never did. The divergence between American and European approaches to vacation time has only widened since the 1930s. Today, European Union law guarantees a minimum of 20 paid vacation days annually, with many countries providing 30 or more. France, the pioneer, now mandates 25 days of paid vacation, with many workers receiving additional time through collective bargaining agreements. Germany provides 24 days minimum, but most workers receive 30. Even developing countries have surpassed the United States. Brazil guarantees 30 days, India provides 12, and Mexico mandates 6 days after 1 year of employment. The United States guarantees 0. Not a single day of paid vacation is required by federal law. This makes America unique among developed nations, not in a good way. We're the only advanced economy that treats paid vacation as a privilege rather than a right. The consequences are measurable and stark. American workers take an average of 10 vacation days per year compared to 25 in Germany and 30 in France. But even those 10 days aren't guaranteed. 25% of American workers receive no paid vacation time at all, rising to 31% among low-wage earners. Project Time Off research shows that Americans left 212 million vacation days unused in recent years, representing $62.2 billion in lost benefits. This isn't just about leisure, it's about health, productivity, and human dignity. Countries with mandatory vacation time consistently rank higher in happiness indices, have lower rates of burnout, and often exceed American productivity levels. The original promise that paid vacation would destroy economic competitiveness has been thoroughly disproven. If anything, the evidence suggests the opposite. Yet changing this system faces the same philosophical resistance that has persisted for decades. American employers still view paid vacation as paying people to not work, rather than as investment in worker productivity and retention. Congressional attempts to pass paid vacation laws, including the Paid Vacation Act of 2013, and the Guaranteed Paid Vacation Act of 2015 have failed repeatedly, with opponents claiming they would kill jobs. The irony is profound. The country whose industrial model inspired early vacation advocates has become the most prominent holdout among developed nations. We've created a system where your right to rest depends entirely on your employer's generosity and your position in the economic hierarchy. The factory worker can't rest without risking poverty. The executive takes months off without question. That French factory worker Marcel, stepping onto his train in 1936, was doing something that seems mundane now, but was revolutionary then. He was claiming time for himself. Not time stolen from work, but time guaranteed by law, paid for by society's recognition that human beings need more than labour to live fully. The fact that this still seems radical in America, that we're still debating whether workers deserve guaranteed time off, reveals how incomplete this revolution remains. We've accepted that 8-hour workdays and weekends are basic rights, but somehow the concept of annual paid leave remains controversial. Perhaps that's because vacation time forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. If people can be paid to not work, what does that say about the relationship between human worth and productivity? The answer might be more revolutionary than we're ready to admit.